what you reading?
Oh, hi, my name's Elijah. I'm currently reading Artificial Intelligence for Beginners. Here are 3 reasons I like artificial intelligence. So, guess what? Fortnite actually uses bots to teach you how to play. That's really cool. And Alexa also uses artificial intelligence in speech. That's awesome. And also, YouTube and Netflix also gives you recommendations for what you should watch and what you shouldn't watch. Guess what? My favorite show is The Investigators. I love this book. I also got a copy for my friend. Thanks for making this book bio. I hope we can all read it together.
Hey Elijah, what you reading?
Oh, hi, my name's Elijah. I'm currently reading Artificial Intelligence for Beginners. Here are 3 reasons I like artificial intelligence. So, guess what? Fortnite actually uses bots to teach you how to play. That's really cool. And Alexa also uses artificial intelligence.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to day 5 and the final session of our Train the Teachers workshop. I'm excited to welcome you all to this final session and to have every single one of us on board. We are all welcome. We are all welcome. I'd like to say a big appreciation to every single person that has been joining this call from day one. You are most welcome. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for dialing in. You are most appreciated. Good evening, Augustine. Good evening, Matthias. Good evening, Oluwatimileyin. We're getting started right away. I'm glad to see that we already have quite a number of us online. As always, please mute your microphones as you join to avoid distractions. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so we're getting started right away. We'll just wait a few minutes to allow other participants to join us before we get started. Okay, wonderful. People are dialing in. Wonderful. All right, so welcome once again. I'll be running us through, as usual, introduction to data science Nigeria, so that we are all leaving this place. We can become, we call them AI plus champions, people that run with this idea of being a universal donor and a recipient of AI knowledge. That everything we have learned from here, we'll go and share with our colleagues, and that we'll continue to learn more and more. Okay, so about us, Data Science Nigeria is a registered non-profit, and we have a vision to build a world-class artificial intelligence, knowledge, research, and innovation ecosystem that delivers high impact and transformational research, business use applications, AI for startups, employability, and social good use cases. And the idea is that doing all this in 10 years, Nigeria becomes one of the top 10 AI talent, knowledge destinations with a 20% GDP multiplier impact. This will have such a wonderful effect on the economy, and this is part of the whole goal. We've had over, here are some of our milestones and our achievements. We've had over 22,000 participants in our online classes from registration to at least one class. We've had over 1 million downloads of our Artificial Intelligence for Starters free ebook that introduces people to artificial intelligence with 99 use cases. Over 95,000 now YouTube views in our 18 online classes that we ran between March and May during the COVID-19 lockdown. We've also had over 3,000 hours of face-to-face classes in data science, machine learning applications organized in different states of Nigeria. My colleagues, as usual, are on the chat. They will share you links to join our AI Plus community, links to join our communities, links to be a registered Data Science Nigerian member so you can benefit from more and all of these programs that we run. We are currently in 41 communities across Nigeria. And also, each of our communities has our AI knowledge box, which contains over 17,000 videos created from top universities and content delivery networks across the world that covers data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And this is available as an offline content. So without internet, you can download terabytes. It's literally in terabytes of AI knowledge to your hard drive or um, data devices. We also won the Mathai Impact Award in 2019, which is the highest AI award in Africa, which was awarded at the Deep Learning in Daba, where we were honored and really humbled to have impacted hundreds of thousands via our free trainings in online, offline, face-to-face content development, and even job placement. This is going to say that truly Nigeria is the giant of Africa, and we'll continue to do more. We're also humbled to have won the best academic poster at the 21st ACM conference on economics and computer. That the world premier conference that the interface of economics and computation. Even in line with this ongoing, we have our AI Plus members that are participating in an online semester of computational game theory at the University of Nebraska Lincoln. And it's just part of our whole idea of building this world-class research ecosystem that every AI Plus member and everywhere that we can build a community of people who are able to, conduct research and be able to transform knowledge into products and into development in the community. We are also humbled again to be the only African finalist in the ongoing X Prize competition, the Pandemic Response Challenge, which is sponsored by Cognizant. If you follow us on Twitter, you have seen a lot of activity on this in recent days. Here are our milestones again. Also, we run the biggest free AI learning platform like this training and many of the other free face-to-face trainings that we run. They are totally free across campuses, cities, online, offline, project-based, and content development. You can see our segment and our strategy where we have face-to-face, online, offline, and hands-on from the beginners to the professional and C-level executives. And it's all our goal to build an end-to-end ecosystem that you can enter at any stage you are. You're a beginner, you're a kid, you're a professional, you're a C-level executive, you are a university student, you're an NYSC corper, you are a teacher in a school. You can enter the ecosystem at any stage and greatly benefit. We also run the biggest AI bootcamp, as we must be aware now, where we host tens of international and local speakers. It's the biggest boot camp in Nigeria. It's the most competitive, where the best of the best come together and we teach them They learn from the best around the world in AI and machine learning. Here in this picture is Professor Thomas Dietrich. I love this picture so much because you see him there walking through the class, teaching one of the founding fathers of machine learning, teaching our young and bright Nigerians and friends and colleagues on AI and machine learning. So we also scale up professionals, we train professionals, government bodies, run projects, and these are some of the companies that we have trained, and as well as government bodies. We also run free trainings and paid trainings at our AI Hub. Here are snippets from our paid trainings at our AI Hub, where we train business professionals in business analytics and data skills. Here are also some of our trainings at our AI Hub. These are our free trainings for introduction to Python and machine learning and AI at our AI Hub, which these pictures are from 2019, before the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, let me introduce you to our AI Plus for Kids and Teens community, our AI Plus Club for schools, where we offer kids an opening into STEM and into tech and into AI and data science. Our AI book for kids is also available through all these channels. You can get the book through any of these channels. My colleagues are available on the chat window. They will drop these links as well as bulk order links for your use. So this is a book that has received worldwide acclamation. So many good things have been said about this book, and it's a book that demystifies AI, brings it into the nuance and into the language of children and kids of young ages, junior school, senior secondary school, and primary school, so that they can learn AI, Python programming as it relates to them. Okay. Here's also a picture from, I think this is 2019, when we ran the face-to-face version of this workshop, right? It was a one-day workshop where we had teachers gather from across the country in Lagos, and they all went home with free copies of this book. So thank you very much for participating. Welcome to the final day again. Once again, there are requirements for certification. If you know that you want your certificate, you must meet this requirement. If you have not met this requirement, or something happened, you couldn't meet all of them, there's no problem. I just dropped the link to the chat. I just dropped the link to the certification details form. So you must drop your name, how you want it on the certificate. I just dropped the link there. If you know you meet this criteria, please fill in your details, your name as you want it on the certificate. Also, if you have any issues, maybe you missed the class, you missed the session, no problem. Just make sure you make up for it today. That's all. All right. So I wish us the best of learning today, and I hope that we will tweet about our experience here on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. Here are our handles. My colleagues will drop links as well to our social media channels. So thank you very much for learning with us, and we trust that we'll have another exciting time learning today. I hand over now to my colleague Okoyemi, who will take us hands-on and continue from where we stopped yesterday. So cheers everyone, and happy learning. So if we have any questions from yesterday, what was taught that you want Okwe to take or to review, please drop them now on the chat window so that we can see and we can review and we can get.
Yeah, thank you so much, Fumini, for the wonderful introduction. Please, can you confirm you can hear me? I want to be sure that.
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'll be sharing my screen now so that we can start with the recap of what was done yesterday, and before we move into what we have for today. And we have a lot to cover for today. So I'll be moving. Okay, let me try and share my screen now. Just a second. Okay, I want to be sure that the screen is on now. Please, can we confirm you can see my screen? Hello. Okay, let me check this chat session to know. Okay, awesome, great, great. Okay, so yeah, you're welcome back again to this wonderful session, and we just want to start with a recap of what was done yesterday because it's very, very essential to what we are going to be doing today. Very, very important. So I'll just walk through what was taught yesterday before we move into what we have for today. So what was done yesterday was based on the control statements, flow statements in Python. In programming language in general, we have control statements, we have control flow, we have logical flow, right? So I'm very sure if you're part of the class yesterday, you'll be taught something like if, else, while loop, do while loop, and the likes of it. So these are what we call control statements. Like we want to make decision in programming language, and there are different logical operations that we want to perform. So each of them have their own uniqueness, right? Okay. So one of them is if and just the scope of what we're trying to cover, right? Okay, so that's that for if and else. And an example here is if I have x to be equals to 10 and I have y to be equals to 2. So the question here is if x is less than y, do this, otherwise do this. What we're having here is just to check, this is the condition. What we have in the parentheses is what we call the condition. And the control flow here is just what if and else, right? So if this condition is true, it prints this. Otherwise, it prints this. So it means that it's either of these that will get what? That will get executed. The if, once the if is executed, then the else cannot be executed. But once the else is executed, it means that the if condition was what? Was false, right? Okay. Now it goes and it continues like that. And that's what we have for if and else. Okay. Now, if we move down the notebook, we'll see where we are chaining if and else. Like we want to be able to capture more than two conditions, right? In this case, we are having x to be equals to 2, and we are having y to be equals to 6. So if we check that if x is equal to y, do this. Otherwise, else if, but in Python we call it elif, is right? Each of them will be checked against their what? Against the rules that you have already set down. So each of them will be checked, and only one of them will be executed at the end of the day. Only one of them. That is how if and else works. And that's how we can chain if and else together. Another one we can look at is the for loop. The for loop is very, very important in Python, especially in Python. Most times we use for loop, especially when we want to iterate through something that is iteratable, yeah, something that is that you can iterate on. So we mostly use for loop for it, especially in Python. So how does for loop work? You have your iteratable. In this case, we have in our list, and the list is just fridge. Inside the fridge, we have several several fruits. This is what we call our iteratable. Right. So this one here, we can change it if you like. It's not compulsory you write fruit. You can change it to elements. You can change what will be done. That is what you'll be using inside your word. But the for good ethical coding is that you should try to use things that are meaningful. In this case, I'm having fridge, and inside the fridge, I'm having a lot of apples. So I mean a lot of fruits. So it means that it is better for me to use that. For each fruit, that is for fruit, in wrong of me, though it will still work, but it would not be nice of me to say that for I in fridge, print I. This is what we call lazy programming, right? Because it's very, it is faster for you to spell I than to spell fruit, right? Okay, so that is one thing to point out because it's very important to what we want to do today. Now, this works fine, and that is how to work with for loop. For each item in an iterable, then you do whatever you want to do with the item, right? Okay, another example is you have your list. Again, this is an iteratable. You can iterate to it. There are some data structure that you cannot iterate through them. So some of them, if you cannot iterate through them, it means that you cannot use for loop with them, right? But with list, you can iterate through. So we are saying for numbers in my list, print number square. That is, we are squaring each of the numbers in this list. And if I do that, I'm going to have this, okay? So if I move down, I have country equals Nigeria. For characters in country, print character. So we are printing each of the character in this string. Can you see how we are using for loop? So it is just a basic statement like for elements in iteratable, do this to the elements, as simple as that. But it can be more complex depending on what you want to achieve with the for loop. Okay, so the same thing goes for that, and I'll move to while loop now. But before that, there's a need to quickly recap on introduction to break and continue statements in Python. What do we mean by break and continue statements? We are iterating we just want to continue. Like for that particular element, do not continue. Actions available for us when we are looping. I mean, when we are using the for loop, which is what? The break and continue. So how does it break and continue? The fruit is equals to orange. You can see that it will iterate through. The first one is mango. It goes to orange. It continues. It continues. So we are trying to tell the iteration that if the fruit is what is orange, excuse me. If the fruit is orange, continue. The iteration. It means that it go back to what? To the for loop, move to the next element. If the next element, since the next element is apple and is not equal to orange anymore, it means that this will only be executed once. Continue. For instance, let me change this. Let me just change it to print. Let's just say that I want to print. I just want to continue the iteration, right? Okay. So in this case now, once it gets to orange, this is what we printed out. And if I click, if I run that, you see that it's telling me that I just want to continue the iteration. I don't want to print orange. But in this case, we just want, since we don't need this statement, we now say that what? We just want to continue. We just want to what? To continue our iteration. That is, don't do anything to that element. Just continue the iteration. That's the meaning of that, right? And if I change this to break, it means that it will just break out of the loop. That is, no more iteration. Just stop everything, right? Okay, so that's how it works. And if I have another example here, scores, And for scores and scores, if scores equals to 50, just continue. Otherwise, print out the score, right? Okay. Also, if you have this is another example and it goes the same way, continue. That is, if this condition is met, just continue. Otherwise, do this to the elements in code, right? Okay. Now, if we move down to the break statement, I just use the break statement up there. It's the same thing. If this condition is met, break out. If not, do this to the elements. For instance, we are saying for fruit in fridge, print fruit. Now we are not saying if fruit is equals to banana, break. In this case, the fruit will first be the fruit will be printed, right? But it will go further to check if the fruit is equals to banana. And if it is equals to banana, what happened? That is the end of our what? Of our iteration. So in this case, I expect to see, for instance, let's just change this to what? To grape. So I expect this lines of code to print up to what? To print fruit up to banana. Because once the fruit is equal to grape, we are breaking out of the what? The iteration, right? Okay. And if I run that, you see, the first thing is it prints the word because of the flow of the words of the program that we've written. First, we print the elements before we check the condition. But if I have carried this word condition up, for instance, let's print everything, fine. But if I carry the condition up, and I have it here that if what? If the fruit is what? If the fruit is equals to break, I mean, is equals to grape, then it should what? It should just break out. Otherwise, it should just print the what? The fruit. In this case, I have what? Indentation error for my print. Oh, okay. Back this. Yeah. So in this case now, you can see that the printing stopped at what? At banana, because the first thing we did once we get out of the element is that we checked if the element is equals to our reference value. And in this case, our reference value is what? Is the grape. So if it is equal to the grape, if it is equal to the reference value, we are saying that it should break out of the what? Of the loop, right? Awesome. But if it is not equals to the reference value, then it should print out the what? The elements. That is why we have mango, orange, and the likes of them printed. So that is how break and continue works. And if you go again, the same thing, we just break out if a condition is met, right? Okay. So that was what was taught yesterday. And before we move to today's class, let's quickly look at the while loop as well. The while loop is just like, how does it work? It works in the way that everything gets checked until a condition is what? Until a condition is met. That is, say that y number is less than 10, that is, it will check. It will continue to check until what is met. And we should have a way of what? Of modifying the what? The checker. We can call it the checker now. For instance, we say that number is what? Is 1. Then we say y number is less than 10, print number. But if I remove this, if I don't update the value of number, it means I'm going to have endless loop, because forever 1 will be less than what? Will be less than 10. So in this case, we are saying that number should be increased by 1. Of course, someday number will be what? Will be what? Less than 10. And we're saying that number is 1. Why is it less than 10 though? So someday number will be what? Greater than 10. And as such, we are going to go out of this loop. And if I run that, it's what? It continues until 9. But look at this. If I remove this part of the code, if I don't update number and I run this cell, we might end up restarting this Jupyter notebook, because we're going to have endless loop here. We're going to have a bunch of ones. Okay, let's try it. Look at this. It keeps running and running and running and running because we did not update our what? Our counter. So right now I need to quickly go back up and what? And stop the running of that endless loop. Okay, now I've stopped it. I'm restarting it. I'm restarting the kernel there. Okay, and that's that. So if I go back to that statement, we can, awesome. Then if I rerun it, now we are fine. We are back to what we have, right? Okay. Now that is the warning we are seeing here. You must remember to increase. That is, you must remember to update the what? The counter or whatever you are using to check the condition. If you don't update that, then you're going to end up having what? Endless loop or infinite loop. It continues like that. Okay. The same thing, y number is less than 10, we do that. And yeah, 8 is less than this is less than this is less than this, until that condition is what? Is met. That is how the while loop what? Works. Okay. Now, if I move to the break statement also, the break statement and the continue statement also work for what? While loop. How does it work? Our while loop condition get checked. We can do whatever we want to do. Then we can combine it with what? If. If this condition is met, break out of the what? Of the while loop. Once we do that, we're going to break out of the while loop entirely, right? So with the break statement, we can stop the loop even if the condition is what? Is true. And that's true, because the break and continue is like once your control statement has performed its function, then you can now check with what? With a checker and introduce a break or what? Or continue. And a scenario we can, a scenario we can think of in that case is if we don't know the index of a particular what? Of a particular element, and we're not the one that built it, but we want to search for it. If it were to be a dictionary, we can quickly get it with it means we are going to iterate through that array until we find what we are looking for. And once we find what we are looking for, I don't think there's any need for us to keep iterating on the what? On the array or on the list. So that is the scenario we can think of. In this case, there are many use cases of this. And yeah, again, we have x to be 0 and y x is less than 10, print x. Now we are checking if x is equals to 3, just break out of the loop. Otherwise, update our counter, right? Okay, so that's how it works. Okay, so general tips before we move to today's class. Break and continue state, a for loop or a while loop. You use break, and you use the break when you need to check what? A condition, and that you want to know if the condition is met, right? Okay, once it is met, stop iterating. All right, so for today, which is day 5, we'll be looking at Python function and packages. This is very, very important in Python. If you want to take your career further in Python, in programming, you have to know how to write a function. You have to know about inbuilt function. Then the packages that are available for you out there that you can download to make things simpler for you instead of implementing everything from scratch every time. Now, what do we stand to gain in this unit? Of course, at the end of this unit, we should be able to write Python function. We should be able to identify a Python function. We should be able to read somebody's, another developer or programmer's function. Also, we should be able to work with packages, if possible, if time permits us. But most importantly, we should be able to import packages, like external packages downloaded. We should be able to import them. Now, those are the two things we want to achieve today. And trust me, they are very, very broad. They are very, very broad. We're going to try as much as possible for you to understand it. And for those that actually have knowledge of this before, maybe from knowledge of Python or other programming language as well, this is also a what is a Python function? Let's start from there. So Python function is just a block of organized and reusable code. In fact, if I'm to define function in my own terms, it's just reusable code, block of reusable code. The main reason why we are writing function is because we want to reuse it, like we want to use it again. We want to be able to use it again, right? And sometimes we write functions sometimes as well, is because we want to be organized, right? We want our code to be what? To be organized, because if you write Python function, it means that we'll be calling the function and we'll not just be declaring variables anywhere, writing statements everywhere, writing expression everywhere. We will just be calling the functions, and we can use such functions over and over again without need to write entire thing from scratch again. Okay. So, but also a function can be what? Can be user-defined function or built-in function. Like that was I think Wednesday or so, while we were doing some stuff on set and dictionary. We show ourselves some inbuilt function, that is the function that are available for you in a particular data structure. Right? We made mention of the len function. For instance, we have the len function, which is a what? A built-in function. Now, don't get confused. User-defined function means that you as a programmer, you constructed your what? You defined your function. You are the owner of the function. You program it to do a particular thing for you. That is user-defined function. You are the one defining the function. But when it comes to built-in function, these are the functions that have been written by the what? By the available for you in the programming language itself. That is, it's already in Python. It's just for you to call the function. The programmer, the developers of Python have already written those functions for you. So that is what we call built-in function. And this knowledge can also be extended to other programming language. Built-in functions are functions that are being written and made available for you in a programming language. While user-defined functions are functions that you yourself are defining. You are defining it yourself. You are the one that developed or programmed the function for you. Okay, now we have different types of function. I just mentioned them: user-defined and what? Built-in function. Now, what are the advantages of writing Python function? Sometimes you need to write functions, and sometimes you don't need to write function. Now, the advantages of some of the advantages are you can give a function a name, that is an intuitive name. It is your function, right? So if a block of code, for instance, is to check if a student is present or absent, then I can call that what can I call that function now? Check. I can say check. How will I put it now? Can somebody help me out in the chat session for that scenario? What can we call that kind of function now? A function that can what? That can check if a student is present or absent. What should we call that function? We can call it can we call it a checker? No, that's not an intuitive name. Okay, check check P. Okay, attendance. Awesome. I can see some responses in the word. Okay, attendance, check attendance. Awesome. Okay, awesome. Now we are still going to get to how to name our functions, but I just want us to get the advantages first. It means that you can name a function, right? You can give it an intuitive name. And if you give it an intuitive name, even if you've code a particular program for like a year and you come back to it, it won't look like jargon to you because you've given it an intuitive name, right? Okay, that's one advantage. Another one is that your code is reusable. You can easily call the function at any point in time to do what it knows how to do best, right? Also, it will be easy for you to maintain such code. Am I right? Because you've organized it in your program in functions. So it will be easy for you to maintain such code base. For instance, let me give a scenario now. We have the prefect, we have the student, we have and the likes of them. We have the vendors and the likes of them. So if something who to talk to, if for instance, the students are not getting their notebook enough notebook, or there's no chalk, there's no chalk, the marker is not working or something, you're talking to the what? You're talking to the non-teaching staff, right? Or for instance, if for the class, a teacher is late to the what? To a class, there's no teacher in the class or something, you're talking to the what? The teaching staff, right? Okay, so because you've organized, you have an organization structure, it is easy for you to what? To maintain. The same thing goes for programming. If you don't write, it is not necessary for you to write your block of code in functions, but for easy maintenance and usability, then it is advisable for you to use functions, right? So another great question we can ask ourselves is, when exactly are we even to write functions? That is, when should we consider writing functions? The great answer to that is when you notice that you are repeating yourself, you're copying a block of code into another block of code, you're copying the same block of code into another block of code, you know that you're already repeating yourself. And one general rule in programming is don't repeat yourself. It's not good. It's not a good practice. You see some people, they will say that they've written 20,000 lines of code. Sometimes if you check the code line, some of them are what? Just repetition, right? But sometimes it might be what? Unique sometimes. But what I'm trying to point out here is don't repeat yourself. So when should you write a function? When you notice that you're already repeating yourself, you're copying the same code block cell into another part of code, then you know that let me put this code block cell in what? In a function, so that I can just be calling the function name. Now, how do we create a function in what? In Python. I don't want to read through all this. I'm just going to go straight down and explain with this diagram, right? Let me reduce this a bit. Okay, now, when you want to define a function in Python, all this will make sense by the time we start what? By the time we start doing examples now. It is called define, and the short form is called def. This is the keyword. This DEF stands for what? Define. You're trying to define a function. We have the def keyword, we have the function name, we have the function argument, then we have the what? The function code, and also we have a semicolon. Now, look at this. We have the def keyword. We have the what? The function name. Third, we have the argument. Fourth, we have the colon. And fifth, we have the what? The function code, followed by what? Function return statement. Now, out of all these 6 elements, some are necessary, while some are not necessary. Again, some are compulsory, while some are not compulsory. Okay, for instance, it is not necessary for you to put a return statement for a function. Sometimes we might just write the function and not return anything. But let's go down to how this actually works so that we can actually know how to write a function. And I'm going to, before I move to this example, I'm going to start with a simple function. Let's say that before we start writing our function, we must know what our function wants to do, right? Okay. Now, this function wants to print out names of students in our register. I don't know if that makes sense. A function to print out name of students in our register. So first, let's create our register. We have our register, and inside our register, we have the first person, IL. The second person, we have bio. The third person, we have Lio. And the fourth person, we have Mayo, which is Mayo or something. The fourth person, we have, let's say we have Chinedu. Chinedu. Then we have, okay, I think we have, let's say we have Gift now. I think this is okay in our register. So we have a register already, right? Now, let's define a function. don't forget that our function want to what? We want to print out the names we have in the register, right? So we have the def keyword, which is the first thing we have here, the def keyword. The second thing is what? The function name. In this case, we want to print out what? Names. Okay, so we want to say def print what? Register, or let's say print student what? Let's make it simple. Print names, right? We have our our parentheses, then we have our arguments. The argument, I'm still going to explain everything. The argument, the argument serves as what the function is going to use to perform its what? Its function, right? So before that, we want to print out. Print what? Name. Now, if you check this function that we've declared here, number one, there's no place that we've declared what? Name. So first of all, let's pass in our register here. We need a register. If you're going to be printing out names, I need to have my what? My register, right? Now, from what we learned yesterday, we can iterate through what? An iteratable. So I can say for name in what? In my register, right? In register, what should happen? Print what? Print name, right? Okay, if I run this code, I have this, but you will see that nothing happened because whenever we define a function, we are only declaring it. When we want to use it, that is the beauty thing. That's the beautiful thing about function. I don't need to write this code, this block of code again. I just need to call this function, right? So I'll just call this function. How do I call this function? This is just an intuitive part of it. And I'm still going to explain everything and break everything down. Now, if I call this function, what do I have? I can see IO, bio, liar, and the likes of them. So it means that this function that I've written here, another teacher can use it. Just that the teacher will have his or her own what? Register. So if that second teacher has register 2, and the names in those register, let's say that we have person A, we have what? Person B, we have person C, and we have person what? Person D, right? It means that this same function can be used for another register. Can you see what we mean by reusable? So now I'm just using what? The same function, which is what? Print name. Whenever I'm using print name, I pass in a register, but in this case, I'm passing in register 2. If I run this code now, I will be having person A, person B, person P. So this is the word reusable that we're talking about. Right? Now, this function is what? We have our numbers together. These are the numbers we want to sum together, A and B. For me, I would have said it is what? Number 1, and I will call this second one what? Num 2, which is number 2, right? Now, I'm still going to get back to this. This is very, very important. Now, we're saying that I should return what? Num 1 plus what? Num 1 plus num 2. Look at it again. We define the function with the def keyword. The name is sum 2 numbers, and we have these arguments. What we have inside these parentheses are what? They are what we call arguments, right? They are what we call what? Arguments. And there's difference between argument and parameter. Some will say that these are parameters. Some will say that what? These are arguments. We're still going to get to that. Just assume that they are what? Argument for now. Now, we are using the return keyword here. Return this. So when we invoke a function, that is when we call the function, we are passing in what? Number 1 is 9, and number 2 is what? Is 7. So if I declare this function here, and I run this, I have the sum of the two numbers, 9 plus 7 as what? As 16. Okay, so since function is reusable, we can also get the sum with this register block of, I'm passing this argument 6 and 9, and I'll get my answer. Okay, now before we move down to indentation error and the likes of them, I just want to quickly point out a very important point here. Now, what we have in this parenthesis here, what we have here, num1 and num2, they are what we call parameters. They are what we call what? Function parameters. And what are function parameters? Parameters are what the function needs to carry out its duty. Like a function will perform something. So in order to perform that thing, it needs an input. So and such inputs are what we call what? Parameters, right? So when you are declaring a function, we call them what? Function. They are no longer parameter. So we are saying that for parameter 1, we have passed in an argument called 9. So now this is the parameter, but now 9 is called what? An argument. So it means that parameter is an argument when a function is being called. Does that make sense? So this is a placeholder, but what we are passing into that placeholder is what? Is an argument. I just want to point that out before we move into what? Indentation error. Okay, I hope that is clear. Now, what do we mean by indentation error? This is one general problem in Python. Python works with what? Indentation. If your code is not well indented inside a function, it will throw an error. And it's very simple, because that is how Python has been written. The block of code are separated with what? With indentation, right? Okay, now look at this function. Let's try to define this function again. Let's say def sum of what? Of two what? Okay, let us say sum two numbers. Or let's spell it in full. Sum two numbers. And we have num1 and we have what? Num2. And if I put my semicolon, immediately I hit enter here, you see the indentation. Can you see where the cursor is? This is the indentation, because we are now inside the function. Now, if we do our whatever we want to do, let's say that result, or let's just call it sum. Let's be intuitive here. Sum equal, sum is a keyword, I'm sorry. Let's just put it result equals num1 plus what? Num2. Now, we are inside the function, right? Now, if we are to return what we have here, we want to return the result to the user. You notice that if I hit enter, this is where I should be typing my return. But if I go out and I type what? Return here, can you see that my return is on the same level with what? Function definition. It means that my function has ended here. Your return is serving as what? As the beginning of a new line of code, which is very wrong. So if I say return result here, I'm going to have an error, and the error is saying that return outside function, indentation error. But the moment I push this into what? Into the function back, I won't have any error again, because the indentation are now what? Are now right. They are correct. Now, if we use this simpler function to explain sum of two numbers, and we have this, look at this. This is meant to be inside the function, but we've kept it outside the function. They're going to have a problem. Indentation error, unexpected indent. And it's telling us that where is this happening? It's happening here. And why is it happening here? Because of what we've done up here. This is meant to be inside the what? The function. And when it's inside the function, once I run it, I don't have that error again. So if I push it back, I have indentation error. So when you're typing in Python, when you're programming, you should be aware of what? Indentation, right? And after the semicolon here, we enter the what? The function. So everything we want to do inside the function should start from here, this indentation, and move inside, not outside the indentation, right? Okay, so that is how it works. Now, before we move to complex one, I quickly want to point out what you are seeing here. This is what we call doc string, that is documentation string. It is very, very important. Whenever you write your function or you write anything, make sure you put what? Documentation. This is doc string. And this doc string, okay, let's have the meaning of doc string now so that you understand the meaning of doc string. Now, for instance, let's quickly create a set. Or better still, let's just check set. Look at this function set. This is an inbuilt function, right? Can you see it here? Doc string. Without a doc string, I don't know what this particular class, right? So if I want to write my own function, it is advisable to always put what? Documentation. Always document your what? Your work. And how do we document? Once you declare the function, immediately enter the function, you write your work, your doc string. And your doc string is just string. So I just show you this is the documentation of this function, right? So in this case, I'm just using this statement. In this case, I should be writing what the function does, what the function needs, right? So if I write this now, let's say that the same thing that has been written here, look at this. Let's just copy this and put it here. Can you see that this function adds two numbers together? So we can also continue, but this is a single line what? Documentation, right? We can have double or multiple line documentation. And how do we do that? We just have this. This is multiple line documentation now. And I'm going to copy this text and put it inside here, right? And I remove this. So multiple line what? Documentation. And I will tell the user that parameter. For the parameters, I have what? That is the parameters I need. I need what? Num1. Let's have this like this. Num1, first number, or let's say it goes to first number to be what? Added. And I go again, num2, and we put our what? Second number to be what? To be added, right? Now, this is my what? My function. What I want to point out here is some people don't like writing this documentation. Why? Because it does not add to the logical flow of the function. So they consider it as what? Waste of time. But sometimes this is a simple function. If you have a complex function and you do not document it, you might be wasting time, or you might be giving your users some serious issues that they will have to come back to you and ask you, please, what does this function solve? Which is very, very wrong as a good programmer. Whenever you write a function, write the documentation, right? Now, we've written this function. If you copy this function and we put this and we hit Shift Tab, can you see? These are our own function that we've written. Can you see that we can see the what?
the documentation here, the doc string here, is telling us that this function add what? Two numbers together. And that's what we've written here. And parameters, parameter 1, first number to be added. Parameter 2, second number to be added. This is what we've written here. Now, imagine we've not written this. Let's cut it off. And our user does not know how to use this function. Now, if they come inside this function and check the documentation, nothing. There's no documentation. They're saying that no dot string. So how do I want to know what to do with this function? And imagine that the programmer did not even write sum of two numbers. Maybe this person just write my function, as we always do in programming, def my function. So I will now be racking my head over what does my function does, which is very, very what? Very, very bad, right? Okay. Now that's that about what? Documentation. It is very, very important you document your what? Your function. You write the dot string. Can you see this is better? This is more better. So, and programming is not complex if you follow the basis. But when you start omitting the basis, that is when you start suffering from what? From complexity, right? Okay, so that's that about documentation. We've talked about what? Indentation error. And now you may also specify function argument and supply their what? Their values. In this case, we've written the function here, and when we are calling this function, we wrote just x stand for 2. I mean, 2 is for x, and what 6 is for y. Sometimes we want to be explicit. We want to know what 6 is for and 2 is for. So we say that what x equals 2 and y equals what 32. It's the same thing. These two things will perform the same thing. It doesn't change anything. Just that when we are reading our code, this will be better, because I don't need to go into my function to know what 2 and 6 stand for now, because I've explicitly written it out that x equals to 10 and y equals to what? 32. Okay, now that is what we mean by what? Function argument, and you supply the value. Then there's something we call default argument. Now, again, let me quickly point this out. There's difference between argument and parameter. When you are defining your function like this, you are defining it. Whatever you have inside here are what we call what? Parameters, right? But now, we have age parameter, we have gender parameter. The value of age is what we call what? Argument. Now, in argument, right? 25 is what? The argument. And female is also an argument here. That's a very good one. In this case, we are saying that what? We have default arguments. That is, as we are defining our what? We are defining our function, we also put some default argument. And it's very, very important sometimes. Okay, let me just quickly, let's have a scenario for this. Let's have a scenario. If I open a new browser here, and I go to Google, let's just type google.com. Front page of Google, right? They've given you some default visuals here. They want you to see their logo. They have the search button, and they have other things here. So you will see that if I go back to this place, if I come back here, sometimes your function cannot just be defined like that. You want your function to what? To have default parameter. And why do we have default arguments? Sometimes the function has to what? To be run at first before you even try to change it at all. I don't know if that makes sense at all. For instance, let me see how we can have an example in a school environment now. Now, in a school environment, in a register, if you have a register, it can be blank. A new register should be blank, right? Okay, but there's something we call placeholder. We have them called what? Placeholder. That is, it's not just a plain book. They've drawn some lines there, and they've written some stuff on the what? On the register. Those ones comes with the what? it comes with the register itself. The same thing happens to what? To function. This is it. The default parameter or the default argument is saying that if the user of this function does not give me the age or the gender, just use this one that I've provided. As simple as that. As simple as what? As that. If the user does not provide age or does not provide gender, just use the age as 25 and use the gender as what? As female, right? Okay, now, if I declare this function and I print info, you see that you are a female and your age is what? Is 25. You'll be wondering, how does this function know that I'm female and my age is 25? Those are default arguments, right? Those are what? Default argument. But in the case of a function that we declared here, and we did not put default argument there, if you try to call that function without arguments, like this, you will have an error. It's telling you that you are missing two required positional arguments, X and Y. That is, you must give me what X is and what Y is before I can perform my duty. Does that make sense? Okay. So if I run this back, I don't have an error because I've provided what? Those arguments. But in the case of default arguments, we have written some default argument there. So even though we call the function without arguments inside here, we still have our function working perfectly. Just that anytime we call this function, it will always print out this same information, right? It will always print out what? This same information. Can you see? The first time it printed out, you are a what? You are a female and your age is what? 19. Oh, sorry. The first one, you're a female and your age is 25. You're a female, your age is 25. If I print it again, if I put it there and I keep putting it there and I keep putting it there, I'll keep having you're a female, your age is 25 because that is the default. But immediately I change any of the argument. For instance, we are changing the age to what? To 19. Can you see the difference now? You're a female, but your age now is what? Is 19. That's the meaning of what? Default argument. I hope that is clear. Okay. Now, before we move further from here, I want to be sure that we are still following and we are still there. So I just want us to use the chat session. Let me quickly check the chat session and see what we have. Do we have question? What is the F in the print statement? Okay. It's for the okay, 30 minutes, okay. So do we have any question? Do we have any question? So far, no question. So it means that what we have, okay, if you understand what we've done so far, please, if you understand what we've done so far, please, can you just put a thumbs up or any emoji on the chat session so that we'll know that, okay? No, fire on, okay, we should continue. Awesome. Okay, so we can continue. Now, that is that about that, right? Okay, so now look at example 3. Student information, we have the name, age, blah, blah, blah. Everything here, they are called what? They are called parameters, right? And we are doing this inside our function. You will notice that by the time we call the function here, we have everything printed out here, which is what our function is doing. We just say that the function should print out what we have, right? No logical flow, just print out what we have there. Now, I just want us to move to a more complex function now. Function can also take user input. Okay, now you've written a function, but you want the user to be able to put the input. Like, you know, when we are doing this, we are typing the input. Why not just like what we have here? They've put this there by default, and once they put this there by default, we can type in what we want in here, right? Okay, not that we go into their code base and we start modifying. No, right? Now, this person went, how do we achieve this in Python? We use what? We use the input word, right? Now, look at this. I've just run this code cell. My code, I mean, my function is what? def odd even checker. We are checking if a number is odd or what, or even. And for this function to perform its duty, we need a parameter called number, right? So if the number, I believe we've been taught, what's it called? Operators in what? In Python. This is the modulo operator, and we are checking if the number divided by 2, if the remainder is what? 0, then that number is what? Is even. Otherwise, the number is odd. Now, you can see where we are what? Where we are checking the what? Where we are calling the function here. And when we are calling the function, what did you notice? Okay, let me run this first. Let me just put 2. We have this. If we call this function here, this is the function, right? Let's call this function so that we will know the meaning of what we are doing here. If you call this function and we call the number to be what? Let's say number is equal to 10. We have our answer, right? 10 is an even number. Let's put 11. 11 is an odd number. Awesome. It means that this function is functioning well. But I have to be changing the what? The value here. I want my user to what? Enter the input. Enter the what? The value himself or herself, right? So that is why we are saying that our number is what? Using the input function from Python, right? There's a function in Python called what? Input. That is, you use it to collect what? User parameters, user arguments. By the time I say input, I will tell you that please, or something, enter what? Enter, or let me just put give and what? An input, right? Can you see? Give an input. If I run this, give an input, it's asking me for the input. What do I want to take? So if I put GGG or something and I run that, it collects that what? Input. So if I say that, let me say name equals input, and I say, what is your name, right? If I run this, can you see the question? What is your name? I can then put my name as what? Let's say my name is Zebra. Let's say my name is Gold now. Let's say my name is Gold, right? Okay. The moment I hit this, I've collected the what? The name Gold, and I've stored it inside what? Inside the variable name. So if I go down and I check the variable name, I should see what? Gold inside it, right? The same thing is what we are doing here. We have our function, and our function needs a number, but we want the user to what? To give us the number. So we are using the input function, and by default, the return of this input function, it gives us what? String. Let's check it. What's the type of name here? The type of name is what? It's str, which is string. But what we are working with in our function is what? A number, which is integer. That is why we are casting it with what? Int here. We are changing it back to what? Integer. That is, whatever you give me in this input, change it to integer and perform this. Now, if I run this code, I have this. Please input a number. Let's put 507 there. And it's telling me that 507 is what? Is odd. Now, I want you to imagine what will happen if we did not put number and we put, let's say, we spell the number TWO2. We're going to have an error. It's saying that there is no way we can change a string of what? Of TWO into what? A number in base 10. We are trying to change TWO and cast it to what? We're trying to cast it to an integer, which is very, very impossible, right? So in this case now, there's a way we still need to do some stuff to this function to be perfect, but that's not the essence of this lecture for now. The essence of this lecture is just for us to be aware of function and how we can make use or declare function. So if I go back and write 404, and I run the function, I have my result, right? I have the what? The result, right? Okay, so that's that. So warning, a function can have multiple return statements. Okay, let me explain that. The meaning is that if you go back to the beginning of what we have here, we said one of the characteristics of a function is return what? The return statement. Okay. Now, for our function, we can have multiple what? Multiple what? Return statements. And the thing about return statement is that the first one, if the condition is met, the first one that is run is the one that works for all. What do I mean by that? Let me make it simple. Def print name. That is, we want to print name, and we have name, right? Or let us even have the parameter. Let's just have it inside the function. Then we have return yemi. Okay. Or we still have, can you see immediately it went out of the what? Out of the function. Or I can still have return dsn. Okay. It still went out of the function. It means that you are already out of that what? Out of that function. Or we can say return Lagos. If I run this code, no problem, right? Let's call the function. Let's call the function. What do you notice? The first one, it is only the first one that got returned. The rest were neglected, isn't it? So what I'm trying to say here is you can have multiple return statements, right? But when do we do this? Especially when we want to check for some what? Some conditions. So if I say if let's say this one name now, right? Okay, let me just use this example that we have down here so that we don't repeat ourselves. It has been written already, so no need to write so much. So that's that. So if I have this, look at this now. We are checking if the number is even or odd, right? Wait, okay, you can have multiple, okay, fine. If number divided by 2 equals 0, return what? Even. Otherwise, return odd. You will see that there's a condition to be met. The function will be run here. It checks the condition. Then if this condition is true, what happens? This will be what? Return. And immediately this is returned. Every other thing is what? Is neglected. But if this is not returned, then this will be what? Will be returned, right? So if I run this, even is returned. But if I change this to 13, what happened? All is returned. Both of them cannot be returned at the same time. It's not possible. Only one thing can be only a single return statement will be executed at a time, not both. Both of them or all of them cannot be returned, right? I don't know if this is clear enough or we need more explanation of that, but we don't have so much time on our side. I have to run through a lot of things here. Okay. Now, example 6, this task was taken from data camp. So this one is actually taken from data camp. We have list of what? List of string, this, and this, right? Now, inside our function, we are iterating through what? This list. We are saying for string in the list string, that is for each of these elements, each of this string, what are we doing? We are printing it. Now, if you print it, if we have this, what do we have? We have this, right? So what do you notice? If you use return statement instead of print, only more organized code will be what? Will be returned. Now let's look at what that would have done. Let's look at what that would have led to. Let's say return. Let's say return. Oh, sorry, typo. Return. Sorry about that. So we are returning that. Let's say we are returning string. Yep. So if you run this code, what do we have? Can you see the difference? The difference is that when you return, what happened? More organized code. And where is more organized code? The first one. Right? The first one. The first one. We are saying for string in this. So what does this for first, the for control statement does? It went into this list string, it picks this guy, and what did it say you should do? You are telling the for loop to just return. Immediately a function, once a condition is met and it sees a return, it goes, the function is done. Everything is done. Everything about the function is complete. So the for loop, it means that a return here is serving like what? Like a break. Like when we're discussing break and continue, is breaking out of the function, right? So to break out of function, sometimes once the return statement is it and it's the right return statement, it goes out of the function, right? So, but if I go back to print, let me just undo. Yeah, and I go back here. Can you see now? Everything is what? Everything is, we are getting everything back. But let's now put return here. Let's just put ordinary return here. And we run it, we still get everything because this block of code finished executing before this return statement, right? But let's push this return statement inside the for loop. If you push the return statement inside the for loop, again, we are back to the same problem, right? Okay, so the return statement should be at this point, right? And we only use return statement if we need to return something to the user. We need to return something back to the what? To the user. Am I communicating? Okay, so I can remove this now and go back to what we have in the code before, and yeah, everything is working. Now, alternatively, we can write it in this way. How can we write it? For I, again, I don't like using I in my code. For elements is better. For elements in what? In benefits, print what? Elements. Print elements. So if I run this, what do we have? We have the element what? Printed. Am I right? Okay. Now the class activities, I don't think we have enough time to go through class activities. I only have like 10 minutes left. Okay. Now, another thing I want to mention here is anonymous function. Now we are good, we are okay with this. We know how to define a function, use a function parameter, how to invoke the function, or better still, how to call the function. But now we want to look at what we call anonymous function. What do we mean by anonymous? Anonymous is something you don't know, right? No name to it. So that's actually the concept of anonymous function. A function that has no name. Imagine. But you see that when we are giving the definition of a function here, we say it must have a def keyword and must have a function name. So how come we're having a function without a name? So we call it what? Anonymous function. And where's my anonymous function? Okay, this is my anonymous function. And how do we declare anonymous function? But let me just read through this for you. Anonymous function does not have a name, and it is not declared in the standard way using the def. That is, you're not using the def keyword to declare your what? Anonymous function. Rather, we are using what? Another keyword called what? Lambda. So we use lambda to what? To declare our anonymous function. And don't get confused with the word anonymous. Anonymous function is simply a function that has what? No name. Okay. Now, how do we declare a function that has no name? We use the lambda keyword, we put the argument, and we put the expression. The lambda keyword, the argument, column, and what? The expression. Okay, what are the tips? Tips, anonymous function is also known as lambda function. The expression in lambda function is executed and the result is returned. Example, look at this. Look at this example here. Forget about this square is equals to, this is just a variable. Hope we know that. Square is a variable, but this is my function itself. We say that we have the lambda, we have the argument, and we have the expression. So this is the expression here, and this is the what? This is the argument. So we said lambda x goes to what? X squared. So it was, what we are trying to say here is that the argument in this function is x, y x square is what? Is the expression, right? Now, Since I've saved this, I save this function in what? In a variable. It means I can call this variable anywhere. Now, don't get confused. We said anonymous function does not have a name. It doesn't mean that this square you're seeing here is the name of this function. No. This square is just a variable that is holding this anonymous function. This square itself is not a function. It's just a variable holding this anonymous function. There is no name to this function. So how do we do it? We call the square, we put in our what? Our argument, and the result gets returned. Can you see? Oh, I have not run this. Let me run this guy, and I run this, and I run this. I have that. Then you can also say square 8 immediately. So what we've discussed so far, what we discussed earlier on, that we can call a function by what? By passing the what? The argument, or we pass the argument along with what? Parameter. We specify what argument goes for what parameter, right? Now, again, if I write lambda, let's say lambda y, such that y times what? Let's say y divided by 2, or y minus 2. If I run this without anything, it's telling me that it's a what? It's a function in what? In the main, I don't need to be going into this because I'm already entering into how Python has been written now. We shouldn't be going into this. I just wanted to point that out, that if you run this anonymous function on its own without putting it or storing it in a variable, this is what you have, right? And that is the same thing we would have gotten if we run this function here. Look at this. Look at this. I have this function, right? And I just put it without invoking it. Can you see it? This function, we just put it there without invoking. That is, we did not put the curly braces there. If you put the curly braces, it means you are calling the function. But if you don't put the curly braces, you just want to know what this particular thing means. And it's telling that it's the main, it's the what? It's a function. That's the same thing we are having here. It's telling me that what? This expression I have up here is a what? Is a function, right? But if you now put it in a variable, let's call the variable, let's call it var. Let's call it variable var. Then that goes away. Then we can go ahead and invoke our what? Our function now below, and say that the var, which is our function, is what? Let's just call 7. 7 divided by, 7 minus 2 will give me what? Will give me 5. So don't get confused of anonymous function. Anonymous function is just a function that has no name. And what we've done here, we can also achieve it with this. We can as well say that my var here is equals to this function. I will not just invoke it. Can you see? But if I invoke it, I have an issue, a problem, right? So if I not invoke it, I have this. And if I say var, and I put the what? The benefit there now. Let's put the benefit now, or a list of string. Or let's just say let's just have this 1, 2, 3. Like go this. I have this. It means I'm storing a function inside a variable, and the variable is now coming to this, right? The variable cannot be called as the function itself. And that is the same thing we've tried to do with lambda function. So lambda function is just what? A function without what? Without name. I think I'm running out of time now. I have to run very fast. Now, you will notice that we have been writing function. Sometimes you want to carry out a project with Python, and they've already written a bunch of functions for you. So we call that package. A package in what? In function, a package in what? In Python. What's a package in Python? A library is a collection of Python functions that are written in what? In modules and extended. Okay, I think my time is up. I think the time is up. Just a second, please. A second, please. Okay, sorry about that. I think I've spent so much time explaining and we have not even dealt with package. Okay, so just know that package are what? There are a bunch of functions and modules that have been written for you, and a developer has already uploaded it there. You can download it and use it. An example is NumPy. Can you see? We are importing NumPy. Now, we did not write NumPy. A developer has written NumPy. Our own is just to download it, and now we have it, we import it. Then inside NumPy, we can say numpy.something, and we get what we want to get, right? Okay, so I wish we have enough time to go through this, but there's not enough time, and I have to stop here because of I have to stop here. So if you have any question, you can drop it in the chat session, and I'm very sure if you go through the notebook yourself or the material, you'll be able to navigate through. Okay, so thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Okwe. Thank you everybody for being a part of this training. So you check the chat window now. I have dropped the activities for today's session as well as the other resources. We'll be sharing videos and learning materials and content for your learning and to continue your learning and upskill more on the group chat and via email in subsequent days. So we enjoin you to please do your activities, watch the other videos, and catch up on the things that you might not understand. So we'll be communicating via mail on the certificates and the other requirements. So cheers, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for learning with us. And we trust that you've had a wonderful learning experience and you will go from this training, continue to learn more, continue to upskill. You are very welcome. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening.